There you go. 1 2 1 2. There you go. So now I'm coming through to YouTube, and the reason for this, I'm going to do a very simple webinar. The webinar covers how I use artificial intelligence and how I go from what most people think is the right way to find real estate, as opposed to what actually is the way to find real estate. Because the simple term that people use is what's available today. How do I find something that's on the internet? When you do a search, are you searching for things that are already advertised, or are you searching for things that are on the two biggest paid platforms? In other words, when a real estate agent sells, they're selling through two really commonly used areas. And I'm not trying to compete with the big two. And they are domain.com.au and realestate.com.au. But here's the thing, even if you're going to do your own property, even if you're going to sell your own property, you're going to buy property, you're going to be the person who represents everybody, you're still going to have the same needs. You're still going to go through, what do I need? What suburb it's in? Is it something that I'd like to run with for 6 months, for 3 months, for 1 month? Am I at the stage where I'm testing the market? But guess what? The artificial intelligence is very, very simple. It does whatever you tell it to do. So let me ask this question, and I'm avoiding using any jargon. I'm covering this at the 9 a.m. webinar, and I've posted the link. If you find the link, great. If not, just send me something later on, and I'll give you a bullet point to explain what it is that we covered. Channel 9 News interviewed me on an exclusive this year on how I managed to move a property within just 15 days. I'm not a selling real estate agent. What that means is that when oops, yeah, that's what happens when you go live. I've accidentally pulled a plug on the power, so I'm using battery power. What I was meant to do is turn a light on to make it a little bit easier to see. So if you're thinking of how and why you're going to do property, the marketing is the biggest question. And when I say marketing, it's not you advertising a property, it's you advertising yourself. That makes sense in a kind of like human to human. If you're thinking about going on a date, you're thinking about asking somebody out, you need to interact with them to market yourself. You need to say, this is who I am, this is who I'm looking for. If you don't get that right, it doesn't matter how you meet them, how you present yourself after that. If you're not covering the actual initial thing initially, it's useless. You're shipping in the wrong, you're shopping in the wrong store. You're looking for the wrong thing. You're going to come up with very different results to what you're expecting. So this is where I wanted to cover the 9 a.m. meeting. The 9 a.m. webinar, it's with an AI system that I've used, that I was taught to use prompts. And what a prompt is it's basically it's a way for somebody to just write the description of what they're looking for. Artificial intelligence is just like using a typewriter, but now moving on to the computer stage where somebody's correcting, or at least when the electronic typewriters came in, they would at least highlight or underline any mistakes that you had, any errors that you had. So if you're going to have any question, if you're going to look for property, if you're going to look for something that makes a big difference, that big difference is going to be through 1-to-1-to-1. It's going to say, I'm looking only in the suburb of Double Bay, but not Double Bay anywhere in the world, Double Bay in Australia. Not anywhere in Australia, but specifically in New South Wales. Not just anywhere in New South Wales, but specifically in the eastern suburbs of Sydney. So once you narrow that down, if you live in Sydney and you understand Double Bay is in Sydney, great. What about if you use a word, a suburb, that you think is unique to your city? And then you realize that Brisbane also has one, Melbourne also has one, Sydney also has one. And what you refer to is maybe Riverstone or Lidcombe, or any of the common words that come from the origin of the English word was when the British Empire came to Australia and changed some of the suburb names to be the Lord or the Governor or the the minister or the prime minister. So if you're buying something in Bly, for example, two of the properties that I bought for myself, my own portfolio, were both on Bly. Bly was one of the governors of Australia. But when you look up the word Bligh, Bligh, there's a Bligh in Sydney. In fact, it's in Randwick, so Bligh Place, Randwick. There's also a Bligh in Oberon, which is 2 hours west of Sydney. So Bligh Street, Oberon, Bligh Avenue in Randwick. If you just looked up Bligh, you would be 2 hours away from where you're actually looking. It's the same in every country. It's the same in every property. It's the same. What I'm teaching at the 9 a.m. is how to use AI to ask it to give you the right answer that you actually expect, to give you the thing that you're really looking for. So it's very simple. Think of AI as something that gives you the spell checker, the grammar check. Your job is to simply, in the most unambiguous, in the clearest way, to say, this is what I'm looking for, find it for me. Now, last year, Australia had 670,000 sales of real estate. 670,000. Let that sink in. We're a population of less than 30 million. And in just 1 year, we've had almost 700,000 transactions. People are buying and selling property all the time. 670,000 in 2023. What does that mean to you and why should you care? You're only looking for one house. When you're looking for a house in Sydney, or you're looking in Melbourne, or you're looking on the Gold Coast, these are three of the most popular parts of Australia. So imagine the other competition. Imagine the other people that you're competing with. They might live in London, England, and want to move to Australia. They might live in London, Canada, and want to move to Australia. Regardless of where they're at, they're still your competition. You might not see them, but for the last 4 years, people have been bidding online. You'll see that there's so many people that are buying property. They're international. They pay a little bit more because of the taxes Australia puts on, but that might be as low as just 12%. If you think of the Foreign Investor Review Board, the FIRB, it's a government website, and you can check that for yourself. Once you do your application through the FIRB, and the government says, you know what, you buying a single property is not a big risk to Australian food, Australian water, Australian infrastructure. You're not buying 1/10 of the land. You're not buying a massive development or farmland. The application process is very straightforward. Yes, it takes time, but if somebody's migrating or immigrating, if they're going from one country to another country, it could be for geopolitical reasons. It could be for simply the sunshine that we get. A lot of our friends from the UK come to Australia because we get more sunlight, we get more sunshine, we get less rain. So yes, they used to have a rose garden because it rains all the time, but they're migrating here. They've got the beaches, the barbecues, and the community where people get more outside time. So the people that have come to Australia have come for a lot of different reasons, but they're still your competition. Where am I going with this? So at 9 a.m., the free webinar is going to cover how I do prompts. It'll cover the step-by-step on designing prompts. And what that means is that you'll be able to use it for your business. You'll be able to cover if you do coaching, if you do copywriting, if you do health and wellness, if you do multi-level marketing, if you do network marketing, if you do plumbing, if you do electrical work, if you do construction, if you're in the relationship space, if you're helping couples meet each other, if you're helping people write the prompts to get onto Hive or Bee or whatever's the new ones that came out, it doesn't matter which one of the sessions that you're using, it's an online meeting platform. And somebody has to write a good profile for you. Now, let's make it really simple. If you're going to help somebody write a better profile, AI can ask the question of what are you trying to attract? And then all that AI does is it takes the majority of the people that have already pre-done this, that have already done this in the past, and it puts it into an average. It says, you know what, most people that are successful use these 15 words. And that's all it does. It takes the live thing from the internet and it makes it into normal language. They call that large language model, LLM. And it means that because so many real humans have interacted on Facebook, on Instagram, on Meta, on X, previously Twitter, on LinkedIn, on TikTok, those things are recorded. And the computer goes, right, let's take all these recordings. Let's say, what's the most common phrase? What's the most common word? How many likes? How many comments does it get? Let's repeat what works more often. Because if you can do something that's repetitive that other people have succeeded in doing, you're actually getting not just a better result, but you're getting a predictable result. What you're really trying to do is you're trying to get it down from a guesswork into something that just consistently works. So if you think of the bell-shaped curve, the bell-shaped curve in statistics tells you that the majority of people are in that top amount. When I look for property, I think, okay, 80% of the real estate and property transactions in Australia are on the East Coast. 80%. So I can go out to a desert township that might have 120 people, and I'll probably be the most successful real estate agent there because there's only one. So if I wanted to put that onto Google, onto YouTube, onto TikTok, onto Instagram, onto Facebook, I'm reaching 100,000 people about this one township. But just because I've got more eyes on the prize, just because I've got more people looking at it, doesn't mean that people are going to buy in the township. But if people are searching, 80% of the searches are searched for properties on the East Coast. If they're not as many in Perth or Adelaide or Mount Gambier, but they're on the Southeast Queensland, if they're on Sunshine Coast, Brisbane, Gold Coast, if they're looking at Byron Bay, Coffs Harbour, if they're looking Newcastle, Wollongong, Sydney, if they're looking at Greater Sydney, if they're looking at Parramatta, these are things that are predictable because they're constantly working. So what does that mean? It means that you can do this for your business. Whether you're a relationship person that helps people with relationship, whether you're a psychologist that helps people get through their trauma, whether you're a life coach, a business coach, a financial coach, whether you're somebody that helps somebody get from where they are today to where they want to be and you're closing the gap, either because you've done it yourself or because you have the academic knowledge, you've got the mentorship, you've got the certificate on your wall to say you're a licensed A, B, or C. AI can help you draft very similar to how your automatic spell checker and grammar checker used to do that before. So there isn't much of a difference here. What I'm covering at 9 a.m., and I've put the link into this live. So you'll be able to find the link, click it, and register for the Zoom. Register for it. It's a free webinar. In the 2 hours, we're going to explain. And I say we because Atena Pegler is the one who's sharing what prompts she uses, what she's done to be interviewed in the US, to be interviewed in Australia, to become a Forbes sensation, and to have massive influence and over 2,000 people following her on School. That's the SKOOL type of school, not the SCH type of school. If you're getting a new tribe, if you're building, if you're growing, and you want to just use computers to do the spell check for you, but not just to check what the dictionary says the word should be, but to do a survey of what has already worked in Australia, what has already worked internationally. Instead of you spending the next 5 years with trial and error and costing your company and your time and your energy all that time, use the tools you already have. The artificial intelligence tools, the AI tools, they already give you exactly what you need. Why? Because they take the average. They say, okay, on the bell curve, 80% is this. Then it looks at the range or the spread, and it says, okay, so the spread means that the people on the fringe don't really affect the outcome as much. But if we can have a tight spread and we can have a range that goes, use between this type of word and that type of word, that's the best way. That's all for the live now.
All right,
thank you very much.
That is the
and
end
I will
of the
see
session.
you very
Thank
soon.
you all so much for being here. I will see you at the next hop session, but you'll be seeing Shani as well.